Hello everybody and welcome to your Aviation Management Research Paper. This is your capstone course for the Masters of Aviation Management, and in the series of lecture notes I will take you through the major steps in terms of how to succeed in this course and what are the major steps that you need in this achievement. My name is Dr. Gui Lohmann. I am your course convener for this course and the several parts involved on it. In particular, you'll be dealing with me through your enrollment in part 1. The remaining parts you will be engaging directly with your mentor, and I'll talk more about this as we go through. Okay, before we achieve the milestones that we have for this course, I just want to go through quickly and provide you an understanding what is research. And I like these two quotes because they are in many different ways. They provide a glimpse of what I expect that you be asking yourself, or even when you're looking in terms of developing and thinking your research proposal. So I like the first one because it talks about formalized curiosity. And I think there's nothing better than you having the time and the chance and the opportunities. And actually this course involves a number of hours for you to do your task in terms of what has been this curiosity or this research question that you have in aviation, that you always thought that you would have more time to reflect, to consider, to analyze, to collect data, and to provide answers. So don't worry if it might sound a little bit naive, your initial research proposal, but we can elaborate on your passion and on your curiosity. So it's poking and praying with a purpose. So really what we want to achieve out of that, that has to be very clear. The second one, which comes from Neil Armstrong, research is creating new knowledge. Yeah, we are also expecting in a way or another that you will achieve that you somehow will make a small contribution to a new knowledge and an information that you'll be proud of promoting and distributing, talking about. If you're really passionate about our research, we'll find ourselves talking about research in a barbecue or during the coffee break with colleagues in the office or in the, in the classroom. This more formal definition comes from the higher education research data collection in saying that research is the creation of new knowledge and the use of existing knowledge in a new way to create ways to generate new concepts, methodologies and understandings. It's unlikely that we will be working on new methodology, but it can be possible if you think you can develop a new method to provide safety, aviation safety, or procedures that can influence pilots in the way they undertake a certain aspect of their operation. It's fantastic. A lot of the times we don't really have the time, at least in the master's level, to do things like that, but certainly you can look at different ways to understand things. And this could include synthesis and analysis of previous research. I had students in the past that actually their task was to undertake a literature review of a topic and provide new understanding of what is the summary of this body of literature. Most research papers will have a component of a literature review, but what I'm talking here is more like synthesizing previous research. To the extent that it leads to new and creative outcomes, is creating new knowledge as well. So there might be a bunch of information out there that no one has actually taken the time to synthesize it and analyze it in a different way. So there are many templates of research papers on the Learning at Griffith portal, and I'm also upload a few examples of previous research papers for your appreciation. Okay, what we're going to be doing today is just going through aspects of enrollments important to you to be aware. What is a research topic? How do you choose a research topic? We will have another video in terms of the proposal stage, particularly in terms of the research proposal form. We then look at all the stages involved, the different parts, the milestone dates, particularly in terms of submitting your proposal and submitting your final paper. What are the two possible formats that we can have for the research paper? Eventually, if you need new data collection, what is the things that you need to be aware in terms of ethics application, what resources are available, and finally, what are the steps that you need to know before you submit, and how is the marking for your research paper happening. Okay, what is your enrollment? What does it involve? It does involve 4 parts, for the simple fact that the body of this research paper is equivalent to the same offer that you would make to study for 4 courses. So that's why we have in 4 parts. Every part involves around 100 hours of study, so you can expect that the full program or the full course, the 4 parts, it's equivalent of 400 hours of work. So it's a very solid outcome that we're expecting. Part 1 is your proposal. Is when you develop your proposal. In many aspects, this will be, you will be elaborating further on the proposal that you have developed for 7010 GBS, which is a prerequisite for this course. It's almost like your research design course. One of your outcomes is to develop a research proposal there. We are finding into more details what is the proposal that you need to develop. The remaining 3 parts, part 2 to part 4, is your development of the research in itself, where you then engage with a mentor. The expectation is that full-time students will be taking the research design course, the 7010 GBS course, in their first semester of studies. So then part 1 of 7560 will be undertaken during your second semester of study, and the remaining parts, part 2, part 3 and part 4, will take place at your third and final semester with us. There's also an option for you to do part 1 and part 2 together in your second semester if you want to start advancing your research. The problem with this is that you won't get a mentor until you finish part 1, so it might be a little bit complicated. Part-time students can actually do the research paper during any part of their degree. The only thing that we do recommend is that you have undertaken at least a few coursework, so you can have a better understanding of aviation topics that you can use in your research paper. So as I put forward to you, we do have a prerequisite. A prerequisite means a course that you have to be doing either at the same time or at least before you start another course. Okay, how do I pick a research topic? I think it's actually a combination of several things. It's a combination of your passion. The research paper activity is a very lonely activity in many aspects, so you're going to be finding yourself bored sometimes, or you find that it's a daunting experience and so on. If you don't have the passion from the beginning, it's hard for you to develop the resilience that you need for the long term. You can take on board your experience, your work experience, your workplace experience on board as well. For some, it can be a career opportunity. It can be a career change within aviation. It can be a career change because aviation is not your background and you want to know more about a specific area in aviation. So that can give you, a certain number of hours for you to further understand one aspect of the aviation industry. And it can also be an opportunity for networking. If you start to consider that you can collect new data and you can collect the key stakeholders in aviation, And those interviews that you might be undertaking with, let's say, 10, 15 or 20 key personnel in aviation can open up new work opportunity for you down the track. I put in those squares, those reddish squares for you, just some areas that you can consider in terms of the broader picture of the aviation possibilities. You know, we can look at airline business and operations, airports, air traffic control, aviation tourism, economic aspects of aviation, deregulation, you know, the role of distribution channels and how important they've been in aviation. Passenger segmentation, there's a lot of studies on the demand side, human resource factors, safety, strategic management, you name them, aviation and health. There's a wide spectrum of aviation topics that are related that you can consider in your research paper. Usually some students come to me and ask me for suggestions for research topics. I tend not to provide them just because exactly what I've mentioned earlier in terms of your passion and you developing out of your passion. But I'm certainly going to be guiding you through to make sure that your research topic is relevant and, more importantly, is also feasible, because we do have constraints in terms of time and resources that you have available, and you need to make sure you are successful in your in this course. Okay, what is the proposal? The proposal, it's done through part 1 of your enrollment. You'll be engaging with me as your course convener, and your task is to develop your proposal according to the proposal form. There's a specific video that I'll be delivering on how you fill in your proposal form. So watch this space. What are the milestones that you have? We'll go through them. It's very clear on your proposal form. But basically in your part 1, you have to submit your proposal to me around 8 weeks of your semester, the semester you enrolled. For the submission of the final research paper, your mentor should have it by the end of week 6. When are you enrolled in part 4? And the reason for being is that your final deadline is week 10, but you need to give your mentor a few weeks to mark, provide comments, get back to you before you can submit on the 10th. If you don't submit on the 10th, I can guarantee that I'll be able to send it to the paper to be marked on time for you to graduate. I will then, once the proposal is accepted, and that's why it's important that we talk along the weeks, you know, in terms of when you enroll in part 1, because your deadline is week 8, sorry. But it's not necessarily that I'll be approving it at that stage, so we might need some interaction along the way. Once it's approved, I will suggest a mentor, and a mentor will then be allocated to you. In case it happens sometimes, maybe to a few students a semester, if you decide to change your topic, there's no need to discuss it back to me as a course convener as long as it has been approved by your mentor. Okay, the development stage. Roughly, you need to consider in terms of your time planning that a quarter of your total time will be devoted in terms of you planning your research. Before you put the time and the energy to undertake your research, it's very important that you plan ahead to make sure it's going to be feasible, that you have the means to undertake what you need to do. Then about a quarter of your time, you actually need to conduct the research. You need to collect the data, you need to engage with the literature and so on. You also need time to analyze your results and write a first draft. So don't underestimate that this will actually take time. And finally, a quarter of your time you should consider in terms of shaping the whole product of your research paper. Look at things like the flow and consistency and style and so on. Above all, engage with your mentor. It's your most valuable asset. Engage early and also in the end part, because that's when you need to make sure you're setting yourself up in the right track and you also have done the job that is expected that you're going to be doing. What are the milestones I basically have mentioned before to you guys? You have milestones for part 1, particularly in submitting your proposal. I also do ask that you submit a CV or resume because it helps the mentor to have a better understanding of your background and experience when I put you in contact with your mentor, and even in terms of accepting the mentorship role. So that's basically the deadline that you have. There are very few occasions that students will actually be allowed to be doing all parts together. If that happens, your deadline is a little bit earlier, but let's not worry about that. That's certainly not available for most students. When you are enrolling your final part in part 4, then you have the 2 near final draft submission to your mentor at week 6 and your final draft submission at week 10, as I previously mentioned. We do have 2 formats for your research paper. One is a longer one with around 18,000 to 20,000 words. If you look at the Griffith University Aviation Writing Style Manual, it provides a fairly good amount of information on how to do it. We also do have a shorter version, which is what we call the journal article style. A lot more concise, but actually it does require a lot more of research, high-level research, to undertake something that is actually eventually possible to be published. So don't be misjudged here. You are writing less just because you have actually done a lot more research in your background. And this is usually also available for students who have a strong academic preference, that are actually prepared to work with one of our full-time staff as a mentor. Not all mentors necessarily have an understanding of what a journal article is, especially if they have a strong industry focus. So if you're thinking about a research journal article, talk to me, and then we can see the potential of your topic and the resources that we have in-house to support you along the way. It's very important that your journal article format has a clear and strong academic literature review, particularly with peer-reviewed journal articles, and you have a strong and clear, well-defined methodology, either in terms of primary data collection or secondary data collection. It's also expected that you're going to have a data analysis section and also some conclusions as well. So you can see a little bit of a difference in terms of the literature review and methodology sections when you compare the 2 formats. Students undertaking primary data collection, which basically is new data. Data doesn't exist out there. Usually is done in aviation either through interviews, semi-structured interviews or structured interviews or focus groups with passengers. But any contact with human beings in terms of data collection, it does require by the university policy that you apply for ethics. So if you're considering primary data collection, it's very important that you consult with me or later on with your mentor in terms of your application. I'm not required to be involved in the application of the ethics, but I'm happy to discuss with you that once you have completed part 1. There's a large number of resources available either through this URL that I'm providing here for you, but also in a specific section of the Learning Griffith site, including forms from students have done in the past. Some of the resources, we do have a required reading book, which is Writing Human Factors Research Paper. Don Harry's book. I definitely recommend that all of you buy and read the whole book. It will help you a lot, even to better understand what a research paper is. He provides a number of examples in terms of journal article research papers as well, so it's a very valuable resource. I've found that since we introduced this book, the students do have a better understanding of what are the requirements. But I'm also very confident with your research design 7010 GBS course. It's going to be a very another resource. The Griffith University Library Catalog, we do spend a lot of money, millions of dollars every year, subscribing to a very large number of database and catalogs, so make sure you use them. Any research methods books that you can find either online as an ebook or in your local library as well, it can be valuable. And there are a number of resources also on the internet that you can eventually search. Submission marking. It's very important that you realize that once you submit it through a specific link on Learning at Griffith, it's going to be sent through a plagiarism detector as studied in. So we need to be very careful in terms of that you understand the difference in terms of when you're quoting and you're using inverted commas, but also when you are paraphrasing. You have to, preferably, it should be with the consent of the mentor. Obviously, if you want to submit, even your mentor is not aware, I'm happy to take it on board, but I would prefer that you get consent from your mentor. You do need to email me informing that you have submitted. I won't be sending this to be marked until you have emailed me. Reason being is that you can use the submission to test the Turnitin plagiarism and check your the originality report. So that's why I might have versions from your research paper sitting there in the system, and I won't send it to be marked until I have a request from you. Check the criteria marking matrix as provided in the course profile, and we will be sending these usually to at least 2 markers, and it can take then depending on the time of the year, especially when we have a lot of papers to be marked up to 4 weeks. So take that into consideration. That's the reason why for the week 10 request as a submission. So this is what we have to provide you in this initial introduction of the course. I look forward to engage with you in this semester, and all the very best in your research proposal. Thanks, guys.